when you're directing your own material, is there ever a time when the writer and the director roles clash?
No, because once you get on set, the writer is subjugate to the director. So yeah, no, I mean once you're on set, you're the director, and that the rest of it is pretty much over. And at that point, it's what makes the best performance on the day. How do you make sure you get the script across? All that stuff. So I mean, as a writer, it helps to be a writer because you can kind of change things on the fly. Make sure that certain improv isn't affecting the story, things like that. Conflict is the wrong word. I think it helps a lot, actually.
And I noticed from your films, Justin, I noticed themes of heart and a family and friendship and a comedy sort of all into one big ball. I want to ask you, what is it about those themes and those elements that really speak to you?
That's a good question. I mean, I think, look, the way I know I like a movie is when I walk out of a theater and you're sort of thinking about things. And you've been pulled out of your life to such an extent that you're sort of able to step outside the fishbowl and a little bit of a new context, and that feeling only lasts for a few minutes. I think what audiences want to see in a movie, aside from just being entertained, is and as a writer writing screenplays, you try to look for universalities in your characters. Even if it's a big, huge action adventure movie, the small story between the characters have themes that are relatable to everyday people. And, for me, a big thing is, and especially in this movie, is that, these people are family and, in a very odd, crass and many times way, but the truth is they still love each other, and that's what they realize at the end of the weekend. And so, for me, it's being able to go to a movie and be entertained and all of that, but seeing part of yourself in the film and, maybe seeing a little bit different and hopefully a positive perspective on, being human and being a member of a family and a friend and loving people and being loved. And I don't know. I mean, it's sort of like, not to compare myself by a long mile, but, the whole kind of Frank Capra feeling of filmmaking.
Mm-hmm. And your film has such incredible cast in this movie with 4 Academy Award winners. For you personally, is it a intimidating notion to direct such accomplished actors? Do you find that they're all sort of anxious to be directed?
Well, before I did the film, I called up a bunch of other directors who were kind enough to, let me take them out to lunch, and I said, what are the things you wish someone had told you before you went off and did your first big movie? And one of the biggest things I got from them was great actors want to be directed, and if you go in there thinking about the amount of Oscars and all of that stuff, there's no way you're not going to be intimidated. And so for me, it was sort of hearing that, but it was also knowing my material. And I made sure that I was so prepared that, anytime Robert De Niro had a question for me, I had an answer. It wasn't always the right answer necessarily, but that I knew the material and I knew what I had to do every day so well that, my lack of experience in other parts of it would hopefully be kind of made up for it. And to tell you the truth, I mean, these are some of the greatest actors ever. They're also some of the greatest people I've ever met. And everyone was so, they were patient and generous and all the things that directors are supposed to say about their cast. But in this case, it was completely true across the board.
And you mentioned how you had some conversations with some directors. I want to ask you, of course, you wrote On the Bucket List, which was directed by Rob Reiner. What did you learn from, watching him direct Nicholson and Freeman, who are also huge actors? That helped you on this film?
I'd say the biggest thing I learned on Bucket List was something Nicholson said before we started shooting. And we were talking about sort of like the script and balancing the comedy and the drama and what was, especially in that film, a pretty precarious balancing act to keep. And Nicholson said, look, the one thing I know is the closer you get the moment of real drama to the moment where you pop the balloon with a joke, the closer you can get the two of those things together, the better they both end up being. And that is something, I have dual citizenship. I'm also British, and sort of my sensibility as far as films, I think, is, you know, in the States oftentimes you have to have, it's either a comedy or a drama. And I think sometimes they mix, but, you know, not often. And for me, I like to mix them up as much as I can. So I think it was sort of the formula, like the crystallization of that idea kind of came from a conversation with Nicholson after, you know, our first table reading of the bucket list.
I think it's so fascinating, too, Justin, because it seems like comedy and drama just mesh so well because so much of life is either funny or sad. How do you sort of try to make a film where it's realistic in terms of what is dramatic, but also making it funny, I guess, without making the comedy too forced?
I think it has to come from character. I mean, you know, the way I approach anything, every script I've ever written is, you know, you figure out the story, but then, you know, humor comes from characters who you relate to, who you understand, and who you want to succeed in whatever it is they're trying to succeed in. And when you have one character who's trying to cross the street here and another character who's trying to cross the street opposite them, where they meet is where the drama and the comedy are created. And so for me, the key is really having good, solid, distinct characters. And as long as you're invested in them and want them to get what they want, I think you're much more prone to being interested in the film and also into finding the situations they find themselves in funny. Because, again, the comedy usually comes out of someone trying desperately to accomplish something when the whole world is in one way or another in their way. And it's the means by which they go about getting what they want that often, you know, it's often hilarious.
Of course. I just have one more fast question for you, Justin. Have you had a chance to watch this film yet with a screening audience? And if so, what has that experience been like for you?
It's the best part of it. Yeah, I mean, you know, yeah, I've seen this with a couple audiences, and you know, it's to hear that much laughter, which is in the screenings I've been in, it's pretty much been wall to wall. You know, but at the same time, I think, you know, in the scenes between Robert De Niro and Katherine Heigl, which is sort of the emotional heart of the film, you know, people are really kind of dialed in and focused. No, that's the reward for all the hard work.